Okay. I think everyone's here.
Yep. Oh, wait. Blasty needs to be invited.
Oh, I thought she got up. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there she is. There you go. We're just working on getting one more person up here, and then we'll start. Oh. Okay, might as well just start then. I'm not sure if Blasty's able to get up here. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. Blasty has her hand raised.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure that out. If here, I'm gonna add her to the group chat, and then we'll just start. Okay. First of all, thank you guys, everyone, for coming, and thank everybody who helped get this set up. We really appreciate it. And we hope that today we can give you some information if you're an aspiring developer, or maybe if you're looking to run a team of developers, that we can give you some information that'll help you. And we'll talk a bit about ourselves and what we do and the journey that's encompassed it. So, first of all, my name's Dimitri. And as your legacy is Jeremy, we are the founders of BloopVille. Not sure if you've heard of it.
We've both been on Roblox for about, I would say, 7 to 8 years now.
Yeah, and we've been working on BloopVille for about 4 years. Technically, the version that's going to come out to all of you has been in the progress of a year, roughly. So, yeah, we'll talk a bit about that history. We're not going to sugarcoat our story, simply because when we were younger, we didn't have anyone telling us the things we needed to hear as young developers. Like, it's not stuff you can just Google. I'm sure you've had some moments in your life where you just found out through experience rather than Googling and finding it on paper. So we're definitely going to cover stuff like that. So, and then we have some of our developers up here too. I'll quickly introduce them. We have Surfer, Killer Bob. Yeah, he's one of our 3D modelers. We have Phantom Hacksaw. He's one of our programmers. And then Cairo and Dom, they're on the same microphone. 3D modeler and texture artist, and Dom is a builder. And then Blasty's not here right now, but Blasty's our music composer. So if anybody was interested with that, if we could figure out how to get her on stage, then she can answer some questions there. And then at the end of this, we'll have we're gonna have a Q&A, where you guys can ask us questions about development or what we do, anything you want. We're not Roblox employees. Just want to put that out there in case anybody thinks we are, because I've heard stories about people getting questions about that. So we aren't. So please don't ask any questions about that. So first, BloopVille's history. So I'm sure if any of you have ever thought about starting a project, you probably had that mindset where you have a million great ideas, or you think they're great until you actually try and do it. And then you realize this is impossible to do, especially by myself. So then you might think, let's go work with some other people. There's that, or you might actually just try and figure out how to do it by yourself, like Jeremy and I did. And that didn't go so well. So we quickly realized that it's really better to have a team. But a problem which a lot of people will have is when you're that young and inexperienced and you really don't know anything, you can't really get that many people working with you, especially if you have no money to pay them. It's really, really difficult. So we're going to talk about what we did and what we could do better if we could go back in time. So a lot of you that are starting out, hopefully that helps. Oh, and hey, Blasty's up on stage now. So, Jeremy, if you want to talk about how the idea originated for BloopVille and like how we got started off.
Yeah, so the idea you might think originated like how a lot of other ideas would have originated. You're talking with your friends, and then you just shooting ideas out there. So how Dimitri and I came across BloopVille is we were basically had around 10 different game ideas on a list that we said we were going to knock out in a single year, and uh, and then we sort of like pinpointed BloopVille down. BloopVille was like the one thing we decided to do because we sort of got emotionally attached to it. We started developing a vision for it. Um,
Mhm.
then we just started tackling development from there. We had it in development for about 4 years, and Dimitri and I were the first developers alongside one other person. So this was like the experimental stage. We had the vision, we had the plan, but we nothing else was sort of set out like the actual professional side of things.
So
So
yeah,
yeah, that's kind of it.
and
Over
then
those over that course of 4 years, we refined the vision, and then here we are now.
yeah, and but let's go in order. So when you start a project, you can have an idea. We all can generate ideas, hopefully, like pretty easily. However, most of those ideas they're not going to work. And actually, at the time when we came up with BloopVille's idea, it was really just a name. We were just texting each other, and BloopVille came up as a name, and we actually made an idea out of that. But that's like pretty bad way to do it because we had no core game loop. And when you're making a game, you kind of need a core game loop. We didn't really have one. We were just like, let's just do as much as possible, throw everything in the game, and hopefully it works out. So that's the first topic. Just if you're going to create a project, figure out a core game loop. And for example, if Call of Duty, if any of you have ever played, I'm sure you have, you run around, you shoot people, and you level up, and you repeat it. So that's a core game loop, and that could be applied to like any game. Usually any successful game has a very uh, defined core game loop. Pet Simulator X, you get pets, you break things, and then you get new pets, and you evolve them. There's a lot of other things to do with it. And you repeat that cycle. So that's a very important thing. Make sure that your game is repetitive in the sense that people can repeatedly do it and still have fun and come back to continue doing the same thing without getting bored. So that's the first thing. And
Yeah, and a
yeah,
note on core game loops is when you establish your core game loop, you basically establish that loop, which is going to be three main points of contact in the game, which is like Dimitri said, in Call of Duty, you shoot people, you level up, and then you upgrade. Essentially, those are the 3 points of contact for their game loop. Now, you with that core game loop in mind, what you have to do is basically build off of it. Every other feature builds off of that, and that's how the progression goes.
yeah, pretty much. Now on top of that, once you have your idea, the problem where Jeremy and I really messed up, and this will mess you up if you don't do it correctly. You need to learn how to plan a game out. And that goes for not just game design, but if you're doing anything, you need to get good at planning. There's a couple of tools that can help you do it, but really it comes down to just don't be lazy and think things through. Think things through to pretty much the last detail.
And
It'll save you a bunch of times.
if you have a
Yeah.
team, you have to talk to them about it as well because everyone has to be on the same exact page.
hmm Yeah. There's a couple of different ways to get the information to the developers. So for our sakes, Jeremy and I are more project managers and creative designers. We don't do as much hands-on work in the game anymore. When we were younger, we did, but not anymore. So there's almost like this communication barrier between us and the developers that we have to get through. And we try and do that with references. I'm sure if you've ever ran a team or had someone else work for you, you have to send them references to show the idea you're trying to get. Sometimes you don't have references. So you have to get good at explaining things to other people. And a way we do that is design documents. Not sure if you're familiar, but definitely write that down if you're going to be running a team or working with other people, because that's a good way to communicate ideas to people. Because in the design doc, you explain the system in specifics, you explain the vision, Makes it really easy. And then second part of communicating with the developers is task management. How many of you have heard of Trello? I think you guys are supposed to respond in the BloopCast channel, right? I'm sure you guys have used Trello before. Yeah, Trello by the same company. It's just a task management software. It's pretty good. Um, it's if you're starting out, great. Uh, Super easy, super clean. So Trello is a great thing to use. But what we use now is something called Jira. Uh, Jira has it's like a more advanced Trello. It has a lot more capabilities than Trello, especially for a bigger team. And we'll give you a bit of insider information for like what it's like for like how the programmers and other developers work with those types of tools. So task managing and design documents, aka planning, those are two
Planning
very
down,
important things.
planning down to the last detail. It has to be obviously you're not going to do it perfect the first time, but you'll sort of get into this motion of planning things out. You'll figure out through experience how much more planning needs to be done or how much less. So you get to like a perfect, efficient balance.
Right. So next thing we can talk about
So
is
Dimitri, I was we should segue into basically how a what we learned by tackling a very, very big project versus what we should have done.
oh right. So now I'm not sure if else has had this thought, but when Jeremy and I were kids, we were like, we want to do the biggest thing ever. We thought of like AAA game ideas that we wanted to do by ourselves, which was practically impossible. I'm sure many of you might have had that experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
but what we
If you're
didn't
a
realize
developer.
and what we didn't expect was this to take 4 years. I'll tell you that. So none of us actually knew that this would take this long. So when we were starting out, we had the idea that it'd be really quick, probably in a couple months. Now, one thing which we would have done differently, because we ended up finding investors and funding from other developers and other people off the platform, is we would have probably rather not done that, and we probably would have made smaller projects if we went back in time to gain capital or money to fund our own big project. So the lesson there is, if you're trying to do something massive, the best option is probably to make small games, make revenue, make some money, so then you could fund yourselves. It'll probably work out better in the future. So that's a really good idea if you have a really big idea that you want to do. Um, so there's that, and then another huge issue, which I just want to briefly cover, is I think this is another thing we've all done before. It's called scope creep. It's when you have too many ideas and you have too many things that you want to add into the game. Our developers know this. They're very very well aware of this. Where things are
Yeah,
constantly changing. And eventually what happens is the scope of your project gets so large because you're adding so many little things all the time because you're always like, oh, this is a cool idea. What you don't realize is that finish line keeps going back a couple feet every time you add one of those things. And like I said, our developers are well aware, especially the ones that have been here for a while. They work through it with us, but something you
yeah,
don't want to do. But Jeremy, you
and
can
that
cover the when you
well,
can
that's
add certain things.
real quick. One thing I would like to cover regarding scope creep is basically how you avoid scope creep goes back into the planning of the game, which is the one of the most essential parts, if not the most essential part, which is taking as many months or weeks as it takes to plan. You take that time, you plan the game, and then you stick to that plan and only make changes if necessary. You will not like scope creep is probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to game development. Um, really ambitious teams such as ourselves, we learned this through the hard way through experience. Is you get to a point where you feel comfortable with your game. Whether it doesn't matter what the size of the game is, you could be completely content with where you are, and then you're like, I have this idea. I think it's great. And then that idea, you think, okay, it only takes a week, right? You tell yourself it's only going to take a week or only a few days, but then it adds up. Like you continue to add things, you continue to give yourself leeway, and then that adds time. Next, you're 6 months out on your project. So you really, really have to stick to your plan. Um,
Mhm.
which is why you need a well thought out plan. But if you don't stick to your plan, then you will run into the issue of scope creep, and then it becomes a habit, right? It starts to form into this bad habit, and then you essentially will never release. And so that's an
Yeah,
issue we ran into. And so that's something that we want to tell you, that it's really like, it's something, I guess you could read it on Google, but you really get the full experience when you're actually going through that motion of making that mistake. So
yeah. Um, and just to segue a bit, now when you're starting out, if some of you guys are interested in starting out, you don't focus on the money. Um, and what I mean by that is when we started out, the reason why BloopVille is still a good idea today was because it wasn't solely intended to make money. Back then, when we were kids, we were just trying to create a cool project. And I'm sure many of you are wanting to create a cool project. So to us, money is second. Um, our ideas aren't centered around making money. And I think that's what makes us so unique and why our product is so cool and crazy. I mean, once you guys see it, obviously, you'll see it. But yeah, don't focus on the money. You'll run yourself short, especially if you're working on a project that takes a long time to do. You'll probably get very disinterested in it because if you're too focused on the money, you also probably want it to be very quick. So,
yes, exactly. And you will very quickly come to find out that if you're focused on the money, like the money is a secondary reward that comes from hard work. And of course, like I'm sure this those terms are thrown around a lot, which is like work off of passion. But we really can't stress that enough, because if you're trying to get, make $100,000 after releasing a game you've been working on for a month, it's not going to happen. So enjoy the project, put time into it when you can. If you have all the time in the world and you really just want to put all your time into it, then do that.
yeah, now let's talk about some of the challenges, some real challenges that you probably don't hear about too often, especially on Roblox, because a lot of people have this idea that Roblox is just a hobby thing. Well, now it's really making a lot of people's careers. A lot of people are living
Mhm.
off it. Some people living very, very generously. So we didn't have any money when we started out. We had zero to our name. And it was really, really hard. Like finding any developers that were good, especially, or like that would stick with you, was extremely difficult. Um, so, I mean, Jeremy, you could talk a bit about what you did and the sacrifice you made to help get us to where we are.
Yeah. So on that sacrifice note, when we first started BloopVille, we didn't have, like Dimitri just said, we didn't have money for about 3 years of the project, 2.5 to 3 years of the project. And then at that 3 year mark, I was like, okay, I have the choice of going to college and then doing this project. So I decided to do the project, and then I put my college savings into the project, and that's sort of what kicked us off. That's what got us into a presentable state to actually sort of raise capital, get other people interested, get our name out there. So that, yeah, that's one of the turning points, which got Blutville where it is, and of course all the development that led to increase in productivity and more developers,
Yeah.
which, yeah.
So another thing I want to mention is there's it's one thing if you don't have money, it's already difficult. If you do have money and you can hire a team, that doesn't necessarily mean you're out of the
Oh
bush
yeah.
or the brush anymore because there's another issue that can happen. You can have all the money in the world, but you could have a terrible team. It took us a long, long time to get the team we have now, to refine it and to really make it a good team that they're good at working together and they can actually make what we're trying to do. Otherwise, if you have a lot of money and you hire people who are very disinterested and they don't want to really work there, it's going to end up happening is they're going to slack off. They're going to probably create products that aren't up to par with what you want. There's a lot of issues that can happen. So when you're creating a team, make sure you find developers that are one, they actually care about what they're doing, not just focused on each paycheck to paycheck. That's important, but make sure they have a good sense of passion and they actually care. Two, make sure they understand the vision of your game. Make sure they're on board with that, and see if they are in love with it how you are. You want them to have some sort of connection to the game as you do. That's very important, and it really does create more unique products because if you're just working paycheck to paycheck, you're doing exactly what you're told. So that's all you're going to get out of your developers. It's practically just an iteration of whatever you want as a leader. However, if people actually care, they're going to argue with you about ideas. You're going to get great ideas from those arguments. There's a lot of great things that come from that. So you really want to focus on that too. Um, Now, that's another
Real
thing I want to talk about. Or
quick,
Jeremy, if you want to add on real quick.
I did want to add on. So I want to talk about sort of the dichotomy between being a solo dev and actually having a team. So you can, of course, choose to find a team, which is pretty difficult in and of itself because, like Dimitri said, you have to find people that also believe in the vision, and people aren't going to believe in the vision right from the get go. You're going to have to convince them. Now, if you're a solo dev, of course, it's a different story. Being a solo dev, it may take a lot more capital. May take a lot less. It just depends on the size of your project. And again, like with a team, it can take a lot of capital because you could be having your developers do things that are meaningless. And if you really don't have that pipeline going, if you really don't have that plan, and this really goes back to the planning phase, then you will be just wasting money blatantly. So just be careful of that.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about was now when you how many of you guys have seen like a game that doesn't necessarily look too great? I won't name drop, but you're like, how is this doing so well? Like, how does this game have so many players? I mean, you probably know a couple of games that don't look the best or anything.
I
But
was about to say the same thing.
the point about it is like, sometimes aesthetics don't matter the way things look, and it's more about how much fun you have playing a game. And at the root of it, while Roblox is so intriguing and so fascinating, so many people enjoy it, it's because it's a social experience. You meet people, you have
Yep.
good times with friends and stuff. Now, when you have those good moments with friends, I'm just curious. I just want to ask the chat again. Oh, by the way, guys, you can reply in BloopCast. It's right under or right next to the channel.
Mhm.
Um, how many of you guys had tried to start a project with a best friend or any group of friends or anything like that? Yeah. Did it work out? Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, let's see. Now, if it ended in an argument or a falling out, that's very common.
It's
Now,
very
if you're
common.
gonna, yeah, if you're gonna start a project with friends, make sure you both have the same fundamental values, and that goes for anything in business. Forget game development. If you're gonna work on anything business oriented with a friend, make sure they can be a good business partner. And when the things go tough and hard, that you don't go for each other's throats because you'll lose friendships. Jeremy and I, we've had a lot of like sacrifices
We've
and
had,
losses.
yeah. I mean, Dimitri and I, we've had a lot of a lot of falling outs, and you really you have to when you get in those tough situations, like Dimitri said, make sure you have those fundamental values because if you do not have those fundamental values sort of as your backing, then your emotions will pave the way, and you don't want your emotions to pave the way when it comes to developing.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be tough, and there's definitely been times where there's been a lot of times. I mean, to be honest, the amount of times where we thought we were just going to be done and the project was going to be over, it's more times than I probably could count. And now it's like Jeremy and I started to realize that it's not that we're gonna just flop and fail out of nowhere because every time where we should have failed, you just get down in the dirt and you work harder and you figure it out. So if you're really good at having grit and not caving under that pressure, I think you can go really far. I mean, we're pretty much an example of like probably should have failed a couple of times, but we refuse to fail and we can't be kicked down. So when things go rough, it's common. It happens, especially when you're trying to do something very different. Because I don't think there's too many people that have been doing the stuff we've been doing without prior success or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
and the way
Yeah.
we've done things is very, very unorthodox. That's an understatement because, like, going back to sort of one of the first points of this BloopCast, which is scale, progression. You really want to, if you're trying to, like, if your final goal is to create a really big game with a really big team, start small. Start with small games, start as a solo dev, then maybe bring one other person on, and then slowly throughout the months or the years, like it the timeline changes depending on who you are, but throughout that timeline, bring more people onto the team. That way you're not overwhelming yourself with a team of 10, team of 5. Um
Mhm.
uh, yeah, that's a very important thing to do.
Yeah, and you'll face competition. I think we've got a pretty like hard hand, especially with what we're doing. Um, Everyone will have their own sort of rivals and competition. Don't let that get you down. Um, and don't try and make spin-offs of other people because that will only bring you bad karma. I promise you. Don't do that. Try and make something original. And I mean that's pretty much like most of the stuff I wanted to cover. I don't want to drag you guys on too long, but I do want to hear from our wonderful developers that can make it today. We have quite a bit more
Yes.
that are not here. So, who should we pick first? Who's getting picked out the draw? I think I want to
Um,
pick Daniel just to be
Daniel.
mean.
I vote Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel, I think we should choose you
Hey,
first.
Daniel, we did introductions at the start of this, but if you want, you can maybe introduce yourself again.
First off, I just want to make sure that my Wi-Fi is not like
Are
dying
you
right
good?
now. So,
You sound good.
uh, okay. So I'm Daniel. I am a programmer that works here at BloopVille. I have been on the platform for about like since 2013. Um, I mainly started developing like 2 years after I joined, and I was a really young kid. Um, and I have slowly gotten better at programming over the years. And yeah, so I can't wait for people to kind of see the stuff that I've been working on. If you are kind of in there,
So Daniel is a
uh,
programmer that worked on BloopVille. Like, because I'm not sure how many of you guys are programmers or wanting to be programmers in the chat, but what's something you wish you could have told yourself, your younger self, that would have helped them out so much as starting out as a programmer?
I think the main thing I would actually kind of outline is stuff like we're let's see. So I'd say definitely mental health is something that actually I think a lot of people need to focus on, especially when you're a solo dev, because there's definitely stuff like uh stuff that you're gonna see that will make you kind of demotivated and would want to make you almost stop working on a project if you're working on one. And I just want to say that there's always going to be those times. And there's also times where you're going to feel completely burnt out. And in those times I would especially say that don't focus on the project and focus more on yourself, because the more you focus on the project at that time is where you're going to start to kind of deviate from the project itself, and you're going to kind of just put your emotion into the project, which is never a good thing. You want to only focus on the game itself. So
Mhm.
that is probably one of the big things.
And then another thing, Daniel, what specific, like, what tools would you say are very important? Like, and I'm sure you know what we're talking about when we say tools. Like, for you aspiring
Yeah,
programmers, it's becoming really, really difficult to find work. Like, there's like a
true.
drought of programmers, but a lot of people are looking for programmers. But there's certain things now. The standard has been raised, especially on Roblox, and Daniel could tell you a bit about it. It's not too intimidating, but you should start to learn this stuff Daniel's about to talk about.
If you're an
Yeah,
aspiring programmer that is
Yeah.
looking to join a team or be a solo dev.
yeah. So I think the main thing that I want to kind of outline there is the kind of disconnect between the really top developers or the really top like big scripters and kind of the people who are still working or to get better. There's always there's really big like first of discords out there that are willing to kind of teach people. But I think the biggest thing that I personally kind of ventured into was GitHub. GitHub is definitely one of the biggest things that I kind of used that has actually brought a lot of stuff together. And I know that, for example, BloopVille, we run off of kind of GitHub because GitHub is the file platform that kind of stores everything. So there's GitHub as well as there's VS Code. And I know some people are probably going to be like, how do you get VS Code to work with Studio and how does that work? But there's a plugin called Rojo, which is basically just it kind of ties both Studio and VS Code together, and it allows you to work in VS Code. So if you are a programmer, usually you're gonna kind of stick to programming and not stuff like UI design, for example, unless you're working as like as a multiple like as a dev that does multiple things. Uh, and usually you're gonna be working as a programmer if you are trying to get into that field.
So
So
Daniel, I would like to ask you a question. For these guys, would you recommend starting off with Rojo, or maybe doing more like on board with Roblox, like using Roblox's systems, and then maybe transitioning to Rojo? Do you think Rojo might be too intimidating to start off with right away, or VS Code?
Rojo is definitely really intimidating when you start off. I'm not gonna recommend Rojo to people that are new or that are starting out, mostly because Rojo is more of a tool that is kind of uh, at the end of your Roblox kind of career because you're gonna uh, the main thing that you should focus on first of is just mastering the Roblox like coding language because it kind of just allow like Rojo doesn't really do anything. It's more of a tool that allows you to communicate with other developers because you can sync that up to something like GitHub, which is one of the I think if not the biggest platform for uh, stuff like developers to communicate or people like
Yeah,
developers to communicate.
Pizza
Hmm.
Dev.
Uh,
Pizza underscore Dev made a good point. He says row isn't needed. It purely gives you more access to linters and
yeah, that's
syntax
true.
things. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Rojo
is
is
there
kind of
anything
just a
else,
better
Daniel?
version of Studio's linter. That's what it is.
So, is there
Or
anything else,
VS
Daniel,
Code.
that you'd like to give the audience? Things that they want to know as a programmer.
Uh, uh, Let me think of one. I think you might need to get back to me so I can kind of think
Okay,
first.
sure. Next, I think we're going to go to who's next? Who do we want to choose? Guys in
Um,
chat, either say Cairo, Surfer, or Blasty. Which one? Choose one. Surfer, 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 Surfer. Bloop. Okay,
okay,
Surfer,
I'm
you're
seeing
next.
Surfer.
Oh
Surfer's
my god.
hi, Surfer.
Hello.
um, so if you just want to introduce yourself again, I know we did it at the start, but
Yeah. Hi, I'm Surfer. I'm a 3D artist. I've been on the platform for 14 years now. And I'm a developer for BloopVille.
So, what's something I guess you learned from BloopVille or while being on our team, and what's something that you tell your younger self?
Um, I think the first thing I did when I first started working for the team is I went back and focused on the fundamentals. Like a lot of the stuff that I didn't really focus on until that point, I wanted to perfect it to make sure I delivered like a proper product. I think people are afraid of that. I think they're afraid to make sure they have everything down, like all the basics, like topology, making sure everything's clean, making sure it's not super high poly. It's that's one thing I wanted to make sure that I was able to do.
Hmm.
real quick, Surfer. On that note, I would like to say that thing what you just brought up basically. is, I think, going to resonate with the overthinkers out there. So Surfer is a modeler, of course. But if you are working on anything, and you're an overthinker, you might not even start because of the fact that you just want to perfect it right away. So really make sure to set goals for yourself, little goals. Even if you make mistakes, you will make mistakes. I'm an overthinker myself, so you have to be willing to make mistakes. You can't perfect everything right off the bat. So continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they let their ego get in the way of like going back to the basics, and making sure they have all that down. Because some people, they want to like speed run or like rush through it to get to a certain level to get all these jobs or try to get these jobs. But like you're not going to last very long in very many positions if you don't know how to do a lot of the basics, you know.
hmm Yeah, and I don't know, because I know it's very different from working on a solo team, and I know we're probably a more tight knit
Yeah.
team than other teams. What's something like that was new to you from joining a team like ours?
I think the organization was a lot better. I wasn't used to things being laid out and actually knowing what I'm supposed to do. A lot of the time for solo teams or very small teams that I worked with, I would
Mhm.
have to come up with a list of stuff to do. I wouldn't know what I was supposed to do because a lot of people don't like to tell me. I don't know. Having things properly organized is something I was not used to.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Um. So, is there anything else that you would want to say about your potentially speaking to your younger self, or anything you want to suggest?
Yeah,
Um,
maybe in the modeling department as well. If we have aspiring modelers here, maybe.
Read topology.
make sure you have clean topology, and then if it's not clean, fix it. You cannot texture properly if you don't have clean topology.
No.
Okay, and Cairo's a lot better with the texturing department than I am. I
Yeah, I think we
So
could possibly segue onto Cairo now that we're
yeah.
in the string.
So really quickly, oh, um, Max just messaged me, but yeah, Cairo, go ahead, introduce yourself, talk a bit about what you do. By the way, Dom's with Cairo right now, so he's gonna speak afterwards.
Hi, my name's Cairo. I'm a UGC creator, and I've been working on BloopVille for like 7 or 6 or 8 months now. I mainly specialize in making pets and the textures for them on the team, but sometimes I do some other stuff all relating to 3D as well.
So,
So go ahead. Bear.
oh, I was just gonna say on that note, with what Surfer was saying with re-topologizing. Actually, I would like to get into that later. Dimitri, go ahead and say what you were gonna say.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, what's something you learned joining the team, and especially like a team like ours, and how has that shaped your view on modeling or new things that you learned? Maybe you could even talk about your little UGC journey too. I know that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you have told your younger self to do earlier in life for development?
If there was anything that I would definitely tell myself before I started, it would probably be to not give up. Because there's a lot of times where I almost did just because I wasn't really hitting the milestones that I wanted to. And yeah, but with UGC, it did take a lot of work to get to where I am now. But it was definitely 100% worth it. And BloopVille did teach me a lot of things about how to work well with the team.
So, is there anything you would like to say about burnout? How did you handle burnout whenever you got to those sort of moments where you didn't want to work at all?
The only way to really handle burnout is to kind of take a step back. I mean, a lot of people try to fight fire with fire and just keep pushing themselves to work, but generally that kind of just ends up digging the hole deeper if you keep trying to work when you're dealing with demotivation. You can usually solve it faster if you kind of just completely step back for a day or two. That's what always worked for me, at least.
Awesome. Now, how about UGC? Talk about that.
Do you have any questions in specific?
How long have you been trying to get into UGC, and what was your journey like? What was the hardest part about it?
I started trying to get into UGC about a year ago, back in like the beginning of January of last year, and I actually did get denied once. I think that the hardest part was actually getting into the program when you were like applying.
Do they have very high standards?
Well, they do have. I mean, their standards are generally like coming from a beginner's perspective. Sorry,
Okay.
their standards are pretty high, but I forgot what I was gonna say. Not gonna lie.
Right, so you
It's
said
okay.
you're a UGC creator?
I am a UGC creator, yeah.
Right, so I think a question that a lot of people in chat would be asking is, what is the most difficult part of getting a UGC item out there, like after you've already been accepted to the program?
I mean, the hardest part is getting in. There's about if you calculate, there's a 0.0026 chance of getting into the program each time. But I mean, from there, there's not really a lot that I can share about how we upload things and stuff like that. There are some rules we have to follow though, and I think that that's the hardest part, is just making sure that everything follows the rules.
Awesome.
Okay, and
Um,
more on I was gonna say more on the modeling front, and this goes back to what Surfer was saying, which is the texturing side of things. Since Cairo is our texture artist as well, so she does a lot of the beautiful textures you guys will see on our pets in BloopVille when it comes out. Cairo is the one who did them. So for any potential aspiring texture artists, do you have any advice for them, Cairo?
I think definitely the first step, the first step to take is definitely investing in a graphics tablet. I mean, they make them on Amazon for probably 25 or $30 for a pretty bottom level one, but that's one that I used for a good while with all of my stuff, and it worked fine. But definitely put time into learning the principles of art as well, because even though it is just a texture going on a 3D model, it's still important to kind of have those principles.
Yeah,
And
for
I'm
sure.
sorry to interrupt, but did you say that there's graphics tablets for $25?
Yes, if you look up the Huion H420 tablet on Amazon, it should be 25 or $30. At least that's what I got it for probably a year ago or a year and a half ago.
well, figure the black and white. Um, so Dom, I know you're there. Let's talk about you. Dom is our longest lasting member on the board here. Let's see if he
Hello.
lasts longer now. So
So
introduce
Dom,
yourself.
I am dominating legacy. I am one of two builders.
so tell us about your journey with BloopVille.
I think we're gonna cut Dom off if he keeps laughing. Anyways, Dom has been here forever. He's been here for a very long time. He's a good friend of Jeremy and ours.
Yep.
So our friendship has definitely grown over time. So Dom has been the longest builder here, and he's done a lot of work on the game. So you'll see his work when it comes out, primarily in one of the other maps. But Dom, if you want to talk about like, what do you wish you knew, or what do you think makes a great builder? Because I know it has to do partly with modeling and that
Yeah, and another
separates
thing is,
builders.
I know more often than not, people are sort of aiming more towards the building direction, because I know programming is a little more involved in as well as modeling. So I think building is much more common. So if you want to go ahead, Dom, tell us.
I think builders, like a good builder, needs to plan things out and then communicate with other builders if there are any, because that's very important. it's kind of difficult to work with other builders that you are not familiar with.
Okay.
Especially if like you don't plan with them, that can be difficult too.
Yeah, and then the modeling side, because I know like now or not too long ago you started getting into modeling, and
Yeah.
that's like huge separating thing between a really good builder and just a good builder.
Hmm. Yeah, typically
So
the best builders we've ever seen on Roblox is they're good in Roblox Studio, and they're also very proficient in Blender, and sometimes sketching. But I mean that all that might overwhelm like a beginner. So just get good in Roblox. There's a lot you can do in Roblox, and then you can sort of dabble with Blender, and start to familiarize yourself with that.
yeah,
Are you very familiar with Blender or?
Me, I am not, but Surfer, Iro, and Dom would be. They're actually pretty familiar themselves with Blender.
yeah. Um,
Also,
okay.
wait. Before we go on a different topic, there was a question that I kind of want
Go
to
ahead.
direct towards the modelers. So someone said, "What is the best way to start as a modeler? What would you recommend?"
The donut tutorial from hold on.
That's
let me
actually
search
what
it
I
That's
did
the
first
iconic
too.
one. Yes.
I
Yeah.
did that. I did that.
I
That was
kid
where
you
I
not,
started.
when I was trying to mess with Blender, all right,
Blender Guru. Yeah.
literally someone sent me that exact tutorial.
I definitely
Yeah.
recommend it. At least the first
Because
2
it
chapters.
covers the basic navigation of everything and what everything on the UI does, how to go around and navigate the camera and everything like that. Granted, you can branch off and do whatever the heck you want, but that's a good baseline to start with by following that tutorial.
Yeah. Great. Daniel, by the way, because we're about to get to Blasty, let's circle back to you. Did you figure out what you're trying to figure out earlier?
Could you repeat the question just so I kind of don't deviate from it?
If I recall, it was if there was anything else that you tell your younger self that they should know as a programmer, any other important things.
I'd certainly recommend, like, if you're a really like beginner, or you're trying to learn the language in general, there's definitely quite a few like tutorials I would recommend people try to get into. There's a few channels, especially on YouTube. I don't know if people here know of Alan Blocks. He is one of the channels that kind of
He's
even
iconic.
taught me programming. He's the iconic one.
Hmm.
And then there's also people that you can learn off of if you are trying to get into a more, for example, like if you're trying to learn more about programming, especially with Lua, I would recommend the Roblox wiki, as well as the Dev forum, and the Lua Learning, which is a really good game for trying to get into learning, especially Roblox Lua, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
called Lua U.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Real
can
quick,
do that.
I just wanted to add on one thing about this is like a determinant factor if you're going to get hired as a programmer or not. If you use light mode on Roblox Studio, you will not be hired anywhere, I promise you. Just make sure turn on dark mode. Turn on dark
mode
mode
for life.
and
Yeah.
create
You're
custom
not a
themes for
programmer
your
if you don't
script.
have dark mode. That
And you
is
need
one
a
of the
custom
big
theme
things.
on your script too. Make sure you have nice colors. If your colors are imbalanced and incorrect, you're fired.
You're
That's how it works.
Yeah, you're not a programmer if you have light mode.
Yeah, and by the way,
it can't be that.
Guys, it's oddly similar to the rules for being a Discord mod, except the
Exactly.
custom
Yeah,
theme for
exactly.
Discord
By the
didn't have
way,
that, but yeah, dark mode all the way.
By the way, enabling dark mode in Roblox Studio makes you a 10% better programmer automatically.
Oh
So
yeah, for sure.
That's a fact. It's
yeah.
proven by science.
So yeah.
Blast
So one sec. I had a question for Daniel here, which was, I think a lot of programmers or beginning programmers will want to know this as well, which is how do you deal with burnout? Because I know it varies from occupation to occupation, but with programming specifically, like if I were to, as a day one beginner, just get frustrated because the print statement was too complicated, like how should I go about
Mhm.
efficiently dealing with burnout or frustration?
So burnout is really common in the game dev industry. If you have seen any really big companies, for example, if you've seen big companies like Epic Games, they kind of actually work on worker burnout, which is not really good. I wouldn't recommend treating your employees like that. But so I would recommend kind of taking a lot of breaks. Breaks are probably one of the most important ways to avoid burnout because if you just keep on focusing on one specific task and you can't get the hang of it, uh, you will just kind of go in circles trying to figure it out. Also, get enough sleep. That is also a
Yeah.
really big thing. I sometimes don't get enough sleep, and that really kind of the next day that kind of bites me, and then I'm screwed for that day. So yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we hate when they take breaks. We don't like them taking breaks at all. We don't think they should have any time away from BloopVille. So that's why we don't like talking about burnout. If you guys are wondering why the game's not out, ask the people on stage. No, I'm just kidding. So Blasty, we haven't got to you. Our music composer, our iconic BloopVille soundtrack, all Blasty and my whistling. So Blasty, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Blasty. I've been on the platform since 2015 and I've done probably around 30 tracks for BloopVille now. But yeah, I do all the music. Those things sound related.
hmm Um, did you learn anything from BloopVille with your soundtrack and your creating music stuff?
About actually creating music, yes, but as a more general statement, one thing that I've learned like with working with a team the size of BloopVille is that it's really important to build friendships with the people on your team. Not only does it make communication easier and smoother, but it makes doing the work a lot more fun and it produces a better outcome. So I think, it doesn't mean you have to become best friends with the people you work with, but even if it's just popping in for 10 minutes and saying what's up, because I know there's been times I've gone in there and I've, taken a break from writing something and I've just said hello. And it's one way to take a break and it makes a very comfortable work environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. What would you say is the most iconic BloopVille track?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't know. I don't even know which ones are in the game.
I think I would say
Probably the
the main,
theme.
the
Yeah.
main theme.
The main theme.
I
Yeah.
remember when this one. Here you guys go.
Uh,
Can you hear it? I don't know if you can.
The audio is really bad.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's beautiful. It's a brilliant song. I promise you. You probably just can't hear it that well. I know someone in the chat's gonna yell at me later for hurting their ears, but
Yeah.
um,
So
hello,
yeah,
Blue.
I would like to say some stuff on in terms of with you, Blasty, which is when you are composing music for a game, what do you think is the most difficult challenge? Because I know there's things like you have to sort of match the music with the game's atmosphere, which makes for a much more immersive experience. Would you say that's the most important thing, or what do you think?
No, actually, that's one of the things that is more enjoyable for me because I love looking at things and then, it's, oh, what do I hear? But I think the most difficult part is trying to communicate with the other person and trying to figure out what they want, I've had people tell me before, "Oh, I want this song to be more hype, but I want half the instruments removed." And, you have to try to figure out kind of how to navigate fulfilling their request
From a
with
non-music composer perspective?
what?
From a non-music composer perspective, because like I would imagine the clients aren't music composers themselves, so you sort of have to turn
Yeah.
their work into the music.
Yeah, and there's things that I say sometimes, and I'm sure the other person's like, "Oh, I don't understand that. This is what I think." So it's communication because you can't really explain. You can tell someone, "Oh, I want this to be orchestral, or I want it to be, a really big sound. You can say that, but when it comes to the details, it's really hard to translate. So I think that's kind of the hardest part, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else.
Okay, I think I have a question for you that a lot of people would want to know. How would you, or how did you personally get into composing, creating music?
Oh, I have a whole story for it. So back in 2017, there was this game I'm sure you all know called Flood Escape 2, and I loved the game. I would play it with all my friends, and there was one day I started playing the game and I fell in love with the soundtrack and the guy that made the soundtrack. And there was one day, Nicola, who's the composer for Flood Escape 2, was doing a live stream. And I watched the live stream and I was watching him do it. He was doing it in FL Studio. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. And it was kind of that click. And I grew up in a family of musicians. My dad did it. So it was I had a lucky moment because it was that instant connection. But I kind of went from there and I got Logic Pro, which is what I use, and started playing around and went from there. And it's kind of hard to explain, but I think I got lucky in that aspect.
Well, awesome.
So
What sort of wait? I have one more add-on question. That what sort of software and equipment would you recommend to a beginner?
Oh man, I get this question a lot. It really depends on the person. I know I looked at getting FL Studio for a long time, and FL Studio is great. Ableton's great. Like LMMS is great. Um, Logic Pro, Pro Tools, they're all awesome, but that more so comes down to the type of person and kind of the way they work. I went with Logic Pro because I've been an Apple user all my life and I'm comfortable and I'm familiar with the way their programs are set up. So I went with that. But it also depends on the budget and kind of what type of music you want to create, because with Logic Pro, I could get more orchestral, more live recorded sounds for a better price than I could with FL Studio. So it really just depends. And there's free trials for a lot of them. So take advantage of that. Play around with it and just, if you don't know what to get, then I would say go with FL Studio. I think that's kind of the most standard one that people would consider. Or Logic Pro, both are great.
Cool. Real quick, top at someone's asking if we have a BloopVille server. Does it matter if we tell them, or is that against the rules?
What was the question that they were asking?
If we have a Bloop server, has a Discord server like BloopVille.
is it okay if we ask? I put that out there.
Yeah.
It should be okay.
Discord.gg/BloopVille. Join it.
Go to his bio and click the link.
Okay.
Anyways, thank you
that
guys.
that was totally the smoothest ad I've ever heard.
Yes.
Not
So
even like a transition, just immediately right out there.
Let's you like the
I have one more point. Can I make one more point?
Oh sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this applies to kind of everyone, and I know a lot of people have issues with burnout, and I have a lot of mentors. I'm in school for music and all sorts of creative design. And one thing that took me and a lot of other people that I work with a long time to figure out is to keep an aspect of play when you're creating. The reason I started writing music, and this is true for everyone, regardless of what field you're in, you're curious about it, you're passionate, enthusiastic about it, and I think back to how much fun I had pairing the sounds together, or even with stuff like graphic design, how fun it is to just sit down and get to create. But as you do work and as you manage a bunch of different projects and work for different games, it can be hard to tie into that aspect of playfulness. And it's important to have a way to, over time, even when you get frustrated and feel like you're burning out, make sure you have a way to remind yourself and to connect with why you started in the first place. And when you're working on something, like for me, it's music. If there's sometimes there's projects that I'm not all that excited about, but I still do it because it is like a job. But I always find a way to incorporate something that'll get me excited, that'll keep me fascinated in it. So you just have to kind of prioritize yourself when you start to feel like you're getting frustrated or getting burnt out, and have a way to connect back to, as I said earlier, why you started in the first place.
Mhm.
Yeah, very well said.
Awesome. I think now we're gonna segue into the Q&A, the fun stuff.
Yeah,
So ask some
before we do that,
questions.
here's a message from our sponsors. No, just kidding. Top Hat, do you have any more questions? Do you have any more questions from or for Dimitri and I or any other developer on the team? Or Coda, maybe you might have some questions for us. I'll take that as a no.
Okay.
Hey guys, you can literally ask them anything.
No.
Cool,
Jeremy,
go ahead.
they're typing in chat.
In
Uh,
BloopCast?
Oh yeah, guys.
Yeah,
What
type
your
in
Okay,
shoe
the
size?
Uncle Henry. Okay, Henry, we know you're.
Do I like,
fan.
do I
Did you
like
almost
bread?
give up on the project? There's times where we were at very very low points, but we've never given. We never actually had that thought of giving up. Matter of fact, like if the project were to take another 4 years, like we wouldn't give up. We would just somehow find a way to make it work. So
Yeah. Here's another question. What do you think about the testers of BloopVille? I know that Burrows is definitely like one of the least favorite.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
about it. Like Formula One. Yeah, Formula One's cool. Let's see. RTG, can you stop self-promoting BloopVille? It's
also,
very
real quick,
obvious.
I think Daniel has one more thing to say on the programming front.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I saw a question by someone, grade 1000, that have you tried the framework named Knit? That is actually what we use for BloopVille. So we actually use the framework called Knit for BloopVille. It is a really good framework. I would 100% recommend it if you are getting into development, because it is really good. It's made by Slightnick, who is some people might know as Crazy Man 32. He's really cool. It's called Knit. I'll just type it in chat. There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
And Coda had a really good question. How
Yeah, I
how
was about
to
to.
deal with internal conflicts between devs and ensure it's a comfortable environment for all devs? Dimitri, I'll let you start on that.
So, yeah, this is a very big.
This is probably one of the
Dom
biggest.
knows all about it. So, when there's any internal conflicts, usually it's not team wide. It might be between you as the owners and the developer. It might be between two developers. Usually, it doesn't go further than that. Now, biggest thing about that handling any situation, do not let it stay in front of the whole team. Make it private. Go handle that privately, because you don't want that seeping into the rest of the team. And as a developer, you should never argue publicly in front of the rest of the team. That's not a thing you should do. It's bad. It's bad karma to do that. Not good business practice. So handle it privately, and make sure that. And if you want to resolve conflict, the idea is it's not to win the argument. It's to hear the other person out and either make a compromise or really get to the fundamental issues of what's going on. And usually there could be, when you're working on a project for a long time, and if you're more friendly than professional with that relationship, easier to get in those arguments. That's why when you work with friends, it's easier to argue with them, and you do it more often rather than someone who's more professional relationship.
Yeah, and on that note, if you are working in a team environment, like Dimitri said, if you have a conflict with the owner of a project, or another team member or multiple team members, definitely take it private. And the reason that's so stressed is because if your problem, say for example, is that you just don't like the project anymore, or that you don't like someone on the team, well, that resonates throughout the rest of the team. And that, like, depending on how the rest of the team is, they could be very impressionable. So saying negative things can sort of deter people or make people more negative on the team as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions? Let's see. I saw someone ask.
Someone had a question for all of you. Who was it? RTG Adventures wanted to know if there's any specific plugins that any of you would recommend for using in studio.
Oh yeah, this is
Dom.
actually very good. Dom can go first on this.
he has some great plugins that he uses.
I use Resize Line.
For building specifically.
Yeah.
Gap fill.
I don't use Gap Fill. Gap Fill is really bad. I would never.
Never use gap fill. So resize a line. Is there any other useful plugins that would make a builder's life like a million times easier?
There is, but I just can't think of them on the top of my head. Like I have to look.
There's the lighting one.
Yeah, there's. Yeah, I don't know the name of it. I have to look.
Yeah, just go look, guys. You could probably find some on the dev forum if you just Google that RTG. But I don't
also
know if
have
it's
the lighting one as well, and I can't remember the name of it either. I was going to jump in and help, but then I remembered that I also do not know the name of it.
Oh well.
Rose, we will have the new trailer launching right before. Once you see the trailer, that means the game's coming out very shortly after. So keep your eyes out for that. Who's the best moderator in the official BloopVille Discord? Probably me, since I'm definitely the most active, 100%. And the following, probably, I don't know. Who is the most active mod, actually? I don't know. I think.
Yeah. So I don't think we finished the plugin aspect. I guess that mainly does apply to builders though, but maybe like Surfer, Cairo, is there any plugins that you guys use that is more useful for modeling rather than building?
Future! Welcome, Future!
Oh, Future's here.
I don't really use any plugins in Studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Studio.
I'd
Yeah,
have
so
to
that's
go
gonna
through
be-
my plugins in Blender.
There are plugins kind of dedicated to scripting though. There's
Yeah.
I think there's mainly two. There's Rojo, which I stated earlier. That's only if you're kind of advanced and want to use VS Code. But then there's also one called In Command, which kind of is just the advanced version of the output. So you can actually see like basically a script editor inside of your console, which is really good. I would recommend it. It is I think 100 Robux, but it is really good.
Okay. Awesome.
Cairo, can you answer that question about UGC? It says,
Question.
yeah, it's in the chat. What really makes a UGC's creators' concepts special from others?
The best way to be unique is to kind of keep an eye out on what's already been made. I mean, the problem that a lot of people are running into right now is that the actual market with UGC is so saturated, and the amount of people that are trying to get into the program is extremely saturated. So it's kind of hard to make concepts that are kind of unique and original to yourself. But the application also does just kind of like have a portion of it that's completely dedicated to skill and what you can kind of bring to the table as well. So it's like half about originality and half about the amount of skill that you have and the amount of potential that you have to bring unique creations to the catalog.
Also, sorry to interrupt, but I would like to solve the mystery from earlier. The light plugin I was thinking of, I'm not sure if it's the one that you guys were thinking of, but it's called Light Editor by Woot3.
Oh, cool.
That's the one I have installed.
Yeah, Dom just found all of his plugins if you want him to comment on them.
Max, hi Max. Max is here. Everyone say hi. Max is our programmer, one of the programmers, one of the three. Max has been here. I think he's the longest standing programmer on the team currently. He's been here for a while. Max, do you want to talk a bit about? Oh, your mic's a little muffled.
Whoa.
It's fine though. I think
Alright,
it's fine.
Dimitri, so the plugins I use are Resize Align, Light Editor, Archimedes, Model Reflect, Brush Tool, Part 2, Terrain, and Studio Build Suite.
So if you Dom, if you want to write that down and put it in the chat so they can just reference that.
Okay.
And then Max, so if you want to talk about like anything you learned while being on BloopVille, like with our team, or what would you teach your younger programmer self? Like, what did you wish you knew that would have helped out a lot when you started out?
Are you talking like specifically for in terms of programming or like teamwork or like what do you
Generally,
or-
yeah, teamwork, development, all of it as a whole. Could be programming.
Huh. Probably I think it's tough to summarize like that much time into like one comment, but something I think that is important was that I didn't do enough earlier on the team would probably be like like getting to know everyone's personal like goals and kind of like development vision so that I could better work with them and then like uh try to like basically uh, better make sure that we're all on the same like page in terms of like actual vision of what we want to get out of the final product before like
Mhm.
just jumping into actually working.
Yeah.
And then like also like keeping up with that like throughout the whole process because like like it's tough to like stick to the same exact idea when you have so many different people like contributing.
Hmm.
So that was more like a team thing, I guess. I'm not exactly sure for coding specifically. There's probably a lot of different things I learned.
Yeah. One person asked, "How do you guys manage to work together with that many programmers? Like, is there anything or things that help like programmers to work together, like documentation, for instance, if you want to go into that?"
Um, yeah, documentation definitely is necessary, at least at some level. I think uh, it's tough to say, like, depending on what your project is, there might be different solutions that work better. So I'm not sure I can give like specific documentation advice. And
Hmm.
we're always also like figuring that out too. So that's like that's another thing I guess that is important is that just you continuously keep coming back to stuff like documentation and making sure that it scales as your team is growing.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you'd want to bring up that you want to talk about?
Not specifically, not right now, but I'm happy to answer anything someone might be wondering.
Cool. Just
Okay.
check the BloopCast in case they ask, and I'm gonna because Future joined as well. Future, everybody meet Future. You probably saw his name on the flyer. So Future, he's our community manager and absolute legend at getting us in contact with people. Still don't understand how he does it. But he's helped us out more than we can imagine. I mean, Future's just he's a guy that we just found out of nowhere. We never even expected to work with him. He turned out to be a great addition to the team, and we're very grateful for having him here. So, Future, I'll mute your mic. Let's see if you have any background noise today.
Uh, not as of today, but maybe a bit later. But thank you for saying this. I just want to end. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Jeremy? I just want to answer the question that Henry asked, which was, I have a question for you, Future. How do you manage a community as big as the new hit game in progress, BloopVille? I just want to say that there's a lot of background things that we have, and there's a lot of things that we do in the server. Constantly setting up events, constantly looking for new influencers, people to reach out to, looking for people who could help the game grow. It's not always about YouTubers, it's not always about the people in the server that actually stand out for your game. What you actually do in the background really has a big input because those people that you find can that's why you need connections and the awesome part about being community manager is having so much connections where you could go out to people, even the people you meet in a server could always give a helpful suggestion that could always be used in game. You could always bring it up to the developers. Also, meeting new influencers, new developers, those always help. For example, if BlueFill ever needs a developer, it's quite easy to look for them if you have people in stock. If when looking for influencers in the background, this also goes for development because every single person knows that what influencers are key in the community and development, although it is hands-on, there are a lot of factors that could be hands-off. For example, uh finding people in the background like influencers and getting people to help you with the game. Influencers are key because they bring you your viewers, they bring you your community, and engaging that community is a very hard job too. You know what I mean? So managing community like BloopVille, it's very fun, very good of experience, and mainly you just focus on finding a good team who could help you, and then people come to you. It's that you go around, you go looking for people who could actually be of good use and who look very nice. For example, going up to multiple developers or influencers, you see that they're interested in this type of content or their channel revolves around that type of content. You offer them to take a look at the game. You give them a little tour around the game. They fall in love with the game and etc. Those people really help your community and engaging that community. So
Mhm.
I just want to
Great
say that
answer.
yeah, I just want to say that working alongside BloopVille was amazing, and having people like the game right now, and having people support it is just amazing. Although we do not have as big discords as other games, I'm sure we have a powerful one because in the Discord at the current moment, I don't know how, but it's surprising we haven't encountered any toxicity. The community just loves each other. When we host events, we get people who were never active speaking, and our moderators do such an amazing job in keeping them active that those people stay afterwards. We offer such a hostile environment where people could really enjoy that little moment. You know what I mean? Just everyone on the internet. What's the main reason people are on the internet? People want to stay there because often they're bullied in school. Often they don't have friends in school, and I want to offer them that environment, either in the BloopVille Discord or in the game. We want to offer them the environment where they can have fun, create new friends, create memories. Because we all know that when we grow up, those memories as kids, they always stay in your head and they always help you. That memory, when you're going down or when you're, let's say, maturing, those memories will always be the key to your happiness because these moments that we have right now, you have to cherish them, and we want to offer that in the BlueField Discord and game. That's why working alongside BlueField is amazing, and the community is just amazing.
Thank you, Future. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
So we have another question for the programmers.
Yes.
Okay, Max and Daniel, could you answer this? Sorry for laughing. The question is, I started getting into Lua, but I don't know what a good way to progress would be since there's so much. I feel overwhelmed a lot of the times, and I'm assuming if any suggestions on that.
So I guess my like biggest suggestion for that would be to not I don't think you should attack the problem like you're trying to just go learn all of Lua. You should more focus on like a specific end goal that you want to create. You know, assuming you knew all of Lua, you pick a project that you want to finish, and then you can like start learning just the parts of Lua that you need to make whatever you're trying to make, and that way you don't ever have to like feel like you're studying Lua. It's more just like you're making what you want to make anyways, and then you can learn the things as you need them.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
Daniel?
there's the main aspect of it is to kind of break it down in steps and kind of learn the stuff that you actually really need at that specific time. So of course there are some stuff that you should know as like a beginner. There's if you're I think stuff like variables, scopes, and those like events and stuff, those are like really basic, and I think those are definitely stuff that you should learn in general. But after learning that, it kind of just goes into specific parts of development. Like let's say you're working on uh, a game where it's something related to, like, for example, color block. If you guys have played that, you want to learn specific aspects of that game rather than just focusing on the entire game at once, because you're never going to be able to finish it if you just focus on the entire game at once. You just want to finish. You just want to finish specific tasks for that game. That's usually how development. That's also a way where you don't get burned out, is by just focusing on specific tasks at that specific time.
Mm-hmm. Great. So
Big
yeah, I
fan.
mean, we're already like an hour 20 in. I don't really want to go for too much longer. It's already been a while, and we've covered pretty much everything. Coda, I do have a question. I think did you accidentally close the stage before we started? Because we saw there was like a I think there was more people, and then it like just
There's
shut
around
down.
400.
Yeah, when you oh my no, Coda, for shame, for shame.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So I mean, this could be like one of many future BloopCasts, by the way. So that's good news. The first one, it's always a little rough, but I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, maybe we could
For
work
Rose,
something
we can
out
always
with.
count on you to record. Thank you.
Maybe we could always talk with Top Hat or something. But thank you guys, by the way, for getting this set up. Future Top Hat, Coda, and everyone else involved. We really do appreciate it. And in the future, we could probably do some cooler things if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah.
And
If
then
anyone else has some last minute questions they might want to ask about
yeah,
BloopVille,
I just want to say, everyone, if you want to know the reason as to why Roblox went down, just shoot Daniel Phantom Hacks or a friend request and a DM. Just flood that inbox. He'll answer all your questions.
Wait, no, wait, don't do
Don't
this.
have
No,
no
you
worries.
you shouldn't say that. Everyone here takes everything dead literally.
And I'm being dead
Oh
serious.
no, my DMs. Oh no.
Yeah, just fill those things up, guys. He loves to answer questions, so make sure
he
to
loves to make his
DM him.
bed too.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
Thanks
You
everyone
shouldn't
for
have done that.
coming.
Do you know what happens when Roblox goes down and people think we're official, despite the very big word at the top of the screen saying otherwise?
You know what we should do? Okay, wait, I have an idea. Actually, we should end this on this note. I think this would be a lot of fun. I think we should all just start a hashtag with hashtag Roblox and then hashtag Daniel is the reason Roblox went down,
Oh, good God.
and then also tie
Yeah,
it
why
back
did
to
you do it?
Blueville. All right. Well, I think that's the last thing I'm just gonna do. I'm just gonna tweet hashtag or at
Oh no.
Handsome Baxter.
Roblox
Tweet
down
Roblox
thanks
count
to
Oh
Daniel.
my
Daniel.
god.
Here,
Bro,
I
I'm
got
gonna
you
be
guys.
That one's
the new
better.
Jenna. I'm gonna be the new Jenna.
No, who is it that people used to
Oh
blame when
no.
Roblox would go down back in the day? He's not an employee anymore. What was his
The
name?
1x1x1 guy.
No. The guy who used to be an employee. What was it? Was it like
John Doe.
John Shedlitsky?
It
Or
was oh
or
yeah, John.
Doe?
It was blame. It was hashtag blame. That's what it was. That's what it was reminding me of.
Blame
Hashtag
John,
blame
yeah.
John.
Oh no.
Awesome. Everyone, continue the thread. They must know why.
Oh my god, my Twitter notifications. Oh no.
There's actually
Oh
not too many
no.
people left in here, so I think you're all right, Daniel.
Yeah, you're good.
You'll be fine. Anyways, thank you
I
everybody.
took down Roblox.
I think we're headed out now.
Yeah,
But
so if real quick, just some quick ending notes. If you guys make sure to join BlueVille, if you guys want to stay caught up with the project we're releasing pretty soon. And then also, yeah, thank you everyone for joining. It was fun. It's fun to talk about all that stuff. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Actually,
yeah, we hope you guys walked away with some new information to help you on your development journey, if that's what you choose to do.
yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Eric, we love you too. Eric's one of our old developers. He's cool.
All right, guys, we're gonna head out now. Thanks, BloopVille developers, Bloop team.
So let's bloop out.
All right,
Yes,
Bloop
sir.
out.
Oh.
All right, loop out.
Thanks for coming.
Yep, bloop out.